I heard laughter behind my boyfriend's office door, and my mother's voice was inside. When I walked in, she was in lingerie, sitting like she owned my life. They didn't panic. They didn't apologize. They just watched me like I was the problem. So I stayed quiet and started collecting what would destroy them. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Riley. I'm 27 years old, and this is what really happened. The laugh didn't belong to me. High-pitched, breathy, with that fake intimacy women use when they're flirting with someone they think is alone with them. I heard it through the door before I even swiped my badge. It stopped me. Not because I recognized it instantly, although God help me, I did, but because of where I was. This was my boyfriend's office, and that sound was coming from inside. I stared at the frosted glass wall for a few seconds. His nameplate gleamed faintly under the overhead lights. Dr. Mason Teller, PsyD. He'd told me he was finishing up some paperwork and that I could swing by to drop off his house key. That's all this was supposed to be. A quick goodbye before I headed to my sister's birthday dinner. I almost knocked. Almost. But the laugh came again, and this time it was followed by something else. You always know exactly what to say, Mason. That voice didn't just sound familiar. It was familiar. It had told me bedtime stories. It had snapped at me during puberty. It had screamed when she found out I'd pierced my navel at 16. It was my mother. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I pushed the door open. The lights inside were bright, fluorescent and unflattering, but they caught everything. The iced coffee on his desk, still sweating, the soft jazz playing from his speakers. The desk chair turned at an angle, and my mother, wearing lingerie. Not just any lingerie, something black and strappy, with lace over the chest and nothing to the imagination. She was laughing with her head tilted back, one leg crossed over the other like she owned the place. Mason sat across from her, no jacket, sleeves rolled, notebook on his knee. Neither of them saw me at first, not until my purse slipped off my shoulder and hit the ground with a slap. My badge landed first, face up on the office floor. A perfect little ID rectangle with my photo, name, and employee number. And the same one I'd been wearing when Mason introduced me to the team as his girlfriend. They both turned. Time didn't stop. That's a lie people like to tell. It moved, just slower. Mason's mouth opened, then closed. My mother's lips stayed parted in something like surprise, but not guilt, not fear. She looked like she'd been interrupted, not exposed. Riley, Mason said finally, I didn't know you were... Clearly, I said. The words felt like someone else's, distant, tidy, like I'd rehearsed them even though I hadn't. No one moved. I bent down, picked up my purse, slipped the badge inside, and walked out. Not fast, not slow, just forward, down the hallway, past the intern who was microwaving something from Trader Joe's, through the lobby where the receptionist waved at me, unaware that anything had happened. Outside, the wind hit my face and I didn't feel it. My car was parked in the third row of visitor spots. I got in and locked the doors. Then I sat. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even call anyone. Not Mason, not my mother, not my sister. I just sat and thought, this wasn't the first time, it couldn't be. You don't end up in someone's office wearing that without a few trial runs, without practice, without planning. And Mason, he didn't look scared. He looked annoyed, like I'd ruined something. I was the inconvenience in their moment. I started the car, and in that moment, one thing became clear. I would not let this be the end of my story, because whatever this was between them, I was going to unmake it. Slowly, quietly, completely. I didn't go home, not right away. Instead, I drove to the waterfront and parked behind the old tennis courts where no one checks plates after sunset. The city hummed around me. Buses braking, horns in the distance, some couple fighting outside a 7-Eleven. It grounded me. Reminded me that the world was still happening, even if mine had just paused. My phone buzzed 3 times in a row. I didn't check it. I knew who it was, probably both of them. Maybe Mason first, with some patronizing explanation. Then Mom, acting like I'd misunderstood what I saw. But I didn't misunderstand anything. There was nothing to misunderstand about black lace, soft lighting, and the way her legs were crossed in his chair. You don't accidentally wear lingerie in someone's office. I stayed in the car for another hour. When I finally turned my phone on, and the lock screen lit up with 5 missed calls and 2 texts from Mason. Mason, can we talk? Please? It's not what it looked like. Mason, Riley, I'm serious. Just call me. Not what it looked like. Classic. My mother's text came after. Mom, you walked in on something private. That wasn't for you. Not sorry. Not I can explain. Just that wasn't for you. That sentence stuck in my teeth like something bitter, something toxic. I drove home at midnight. My apartment smelled like lilacs from the air freshener I'd installed in the hallway last week. The lights were still on. I'd forgotten to turn them off when I left. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Except me. The next morning, I showed up to work like normal. I wore a pale blue blouse and my brown leather flats. No signs of trauma, no mascara trails, and no vindictive lipstick. But I was looking for something. I didn't know what exactly. Maybe evidence. Maybe signals. Something to tell me this wasn't just a one-time lapse in judgment. Something to tell me I hadn't dated a man who strategically chose my mother as his emotional support side piece. I passed by Mason's office and glanced inside. It was empty. No iced coffee, no jazz, no laughter, just an email from HR waiting in my inbox at 9:01 a.m. Hi, Riley, can you stop by my office at your earliest convenience today? I went. Karen from HR was the type of woman who always smelled like green tea and had 2 ceramic cat mugs on her desk. She smiled like we were about to chat about vacation time. Hi, Riley, come in, have a seat. I did. She folded her hands. We're doing some restructuring in the department. And as part of that, we're reevaluating contractor relationships. Unfortunately, we'll be ending your current placement effective immediately. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? It's not performance related, she said quickly. You've been great. Really? Then why? Just changes in scope. You know how it goes. I didn't. I'd just gotten a glowing review 2 weeks ago. I'd signed a 6-month extension 3 days ago. I opened my mouth, closed it. Karen offered a paper packet and a branded envelope. We'll be mailing your final check by Friday. There's an exit survey if you'd like to fill it out. Exit survey. As if I'd chosen to leave. A security guard walked me back to my desk. Protocol, she said. I packed my things in a cardboard box with handles. Took my notebook, charger, lip balm, left the pens. They weren't mine anyway. On my way out, I passed Mason's office one more time. The door was closed, but voices murmured behind it. Not loud, just enough to recognize her laugh. That same fake, fluttery sound. I didn't stop, but my hands did shake. Outside, I waited by the elevator, arms folded around the box. That's when I saw her. Mom, in a camel trench coat, hair blown out, sunglasses in hand. She was talking to the front desk assistant like she came here all the time, smiling, friendly, no trace of shame. Then she looked up, saw me. Her face didn't change. No guilt, no panic, just recognition. She walked toward me. Riley, she said softly. I didn't answer. Let's not do this here. Let's not do what? I asked. She glanced at my box. Did you get let go? I said nothing. She stepped closer. I never wanted to hurt you, but you're not a child anymore. You don't understand the complexities of what? I cut in. Of screwing your daughter's boyfriend in his office? Her lips tightened. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She didn't answer. The elevator dinged. I got in. She didn't follow. In the parking garage, I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the steering wheel. Text from Mason. Mason, please call me. This isn't the way this should have gone. Another from Mom. Mom, you're being immature. You don't know the full story. They wanted me to react. to lose control, to scream, to make it easy for them to call me unstable, jealous, overdramatic. So I didn't. Instead, I called my friend Naomi, who worked at a partner agency across town. "Hey, masase, I said. You still looking for a consultant?" There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No," I said, "but I will be." That night, I looked through old texts. My mom asking me about Mason's favorite drink, asking if he liked ambitious women. My sister teasing me about our age gap. Bet he's secretly into older women. It hadn't been a joke. It had been a warning, and I'd laughed it off. I remembered a dinner in May when I'd gone to the restroom and come back to find them whispering. They'd said it was about surprising me for my birthday. There had never been a surprise. There had only been them. Here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't scream. It doesn't walk in with sirens and flashing lights. It seeps in small, slow moments, in jokes that don't land, in looks that linger too long. You think you're paranoid. Then you think you're overthinking, until you see your mother in black lace and realize you were never overthinking. You were underestimating. Security didn't follow me to the parking lot. They didn't need to. The humiliation had already done their job for them. I slid the cardboard box into my back seat like it was radioactive, a collection of cheap things and expensive memories. That branded stress ball Mason gave me on my first day still smelled faintly like his cologne. I rolled down the window, threw it out. It landed in a storm drain without a sound. Naomi called back around 2 p.m. "I've got a short-term project," she said. 3 months, client side. Pays better than what they were giving you. She didn't ask questions. That's why I trusted her. "I'll take it," I said. You don't want the details?" "Not right now." "Okay, you start Monday." That evening, my sister Jenna came over. She had keys. She wasn't invited. "Mom said you had a meltdown at work," she said the second the door closed. I was in sweatpants sitting on the floor eating cereal with a serving spoon. I didn't look up. "She would know," I said. Jenna tossed her purse on the counter and crossed her arms. "You can't just ghost everyone because you got fired." I stood. "I didn't get fired." She laughed. "HR walked you out, Riley." "No," I said. "I got removed. Quietly, strategically. Because my boyfriend, and I use that term loosely, was sleeping with our mother, and I walked in on them." Jenna's face went still. "You're lying." "No," I said. "You just didn't notice." She blinked. "Yeah, hey, that's insane." I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, poured more cereal. They were in his office. She was wearing lingerie, black, lace, strappy, the kind you don't wear for therapy. "That doesn't make sense. Mom wouldn't—" "She would," I cut in, and she did. Jenna didn't sit down. She hovered, like she wanted to run or punch something but didn't know which would hurt less. "She told me he was too young for her," she whispered. "She told me he was too smart for me," I said. We stood there, 2 daughters of the same woman, realizing we'd never actually known her at all. "Why are you telling me this?" Jenna asked finally. "Because you're next," I said, "and you need to know what she looks like when she wants something." Jenna left without saying goodbye. That night, I watched old videos. Mason and I at the zoo. And Mason at a wedding, dancing badly, Mason in my kitchen, pretending to cook. He was always good at pretending. But now the footage felt different. Now I noticed how often he interrupted me when I talked, how he made jokes about crazy exes, how he always steered conversations away from anything that made him look vulnerable. It wasn't love. It was curation. He had curated me. And when I stopped fitting his thesis, he moved on to someone with more narrative weight, my mother, beautiful, dramatic, desperate to be adored. The next day, I got a letter, certified mail, from the county clerk. It was a notice of contract termination, filed officially through the agency Mason's practice worked with, signed by a supervisor I'd never met, stamped, case number 2024-17823. They'd made it legal, clean, papered me into silence. But here's the thing about paper trails. They leave footprints, and I know how to follow them. At Naomi's agency, I kept my head down. It was a startup-y place. Exposed beams, cold brew on tap, people who wore beanies in June. My project was with a partner company doing vendor compliance audits, boring on the surface, but the platform had access to internal calendars, email summaries, and status reports across the entire ecosystem, including Mason's clinic. I didn't ask for access. I already had it, thanks to my old credentials still active for exactly 3 more days. I started small, pulled Mason's calendar from the past 6 months, recurring entries labeled Private Session L1. Same time every Thursday, always marked confidential. No client initials, no notes. L1, L for Linda, my mother's name. And I checked the building access logs. Her driver's license had been scanned at the front desk during those same hours. Every Thursday, like a ritual. I didn't cry. I wrote it down. On Friday, my sister texted, "Jenna, can we talk?" I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, she called. "I'm sorry," she said before I could speak. "I didn't believe you. I didn't want to believe you." "It's fine," I said. "It's not." "No," I said, "but it will be." She hesitated. "I think Mom's using my credit card," she said. "I just got a fraud alert for a boutique in Brentwood. It's her size." My stomach dropped. "She's dressing for him," I said. Jenna made a noise, half laugh, half sob. "She always said I didn't have a sense of style. Guess she wanted to borrow yours." I told her to cancel the card, change her passwords. Yeah, lock down anything Mom had access to, because this wasn't about love. It was about power. And Linda Gray didn't just want approval. She wanted control of Mason, of Jenna, of me. That weekend, I built a file. Every timestamp, every appointment, every matching purchase on her Venmo feed, screenshots, emails, public Instagram post geotagged too close to his clinic. I wasn't going to post it. Not yet. I just needed to see it. To know I wasn't insane. That what I saw in that office wasn't a hallucination. It was a blueprint of manipulation, of escalation, of emotional trespass. Here's what betrayal really is. It's not the affair. It's the performance. The pretending, the shared lies, the rooms you weren't invited into, the truths they tell about you when you're not in the room, and the ones they tell you to your face. I stopped eating for a day. Then I went to the gym, bought groceries, watered my plants, did ordinary things to prove I still existed. Then I wrote a letter, not to them, to myself. I wrote, "You will not chase them. You will not explain yourself. You will not become the thing they called you when they didn't think you could hear." The past is a manipulative editor. It cuts out the ugly parts, crops in the warmth, slaps on a soundtrack, and sells you something that never really existed. I used to think my mother was complicated but well-meaning, that her little critiques about my hair, my tone, my attitude were just a generational thing, that her backhanded compliments were better than no compliments at all. But once you catch someone in lingerie on your boyfriend's couch, the edits unravel, and the raw footage, it's not pretty. I started remembering things differently, her asking to borrow my laptop last fall, saying hers was updating forever. I found an incognito browser tab open to Mason's professional blog. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now, I thought everything of it. I remembered Mason mentioning a challenging older female client in March, said she had boundary issues but was intellectually engaging. I laughed it off then, said, "Sounds like my mom." He laughed too hard, said, "Not everything's about your mom." But it was. It literally was. 3 years ago, Mom asked to crash at my place just for a few nights while her house was undergoing renovations. It turned into 3 weeks. When Mason had just started staying over, one night I found her watching one of his YouTube lectures on attachment theory. She said it helped her sleep. I thought it was weird. But then again, she always said I was too suspicious of people. Now I realize I wasn't suspicious enough. Reframing doesn't just hurt. It infects. Suddenly, every gift she gave me feels like guilt payment. Every hug feels rehearsed. Even my childhood photos, her hand on my shoulder, her smile a little too tight, feel like a miscast play I didn't audition for. Jenna called again on Sunday. "I asked her," she said, point blank. What'd she say? That she's reclaiming her sexual freedom. I almost laughed. Is that what she calls it? She says Mason understands her. He's a trauma therapist, I said. Of course he understands her. He trained for it. She said you were being possessive. That stopped me cold. Jenna hesitated. She said you tried to sabotage their connection because you were jealous of her vitality. Vitality. Not youth, not charm, vitality. Like she was still 27 and I was the mother. Jenna paused. I'm starting to think she's been planning this for longer than we know. She was right. It wasn't impulsive. It was orchestrated. I searched my emails, found one from Mason dated last December. Your mom seems really intuitive. You get that from her? At the time, I read it as a compliment. Now I read it as a signal. He was testing the boundary, and I let it happen. Because I believed I was safe. Because I believed they loved me. But neither of them did. They loved what I offered. Validation, access, comfort. Not me. And when I stopped being easy to manage, they moved on. To each other. That night, I took a walk past Mason's building. Not to stalk, not to confront. Just to see. The lights in his office were on. Through the second-floor window, I saw a silhouette. It was her. Hair up, jacket draped over a chair. She was sitting in his chair, twirling a pen in her fingers. Like she belonged there. Like she'd always belonged there. Here's what people don't understand about betrayal. It's not always a knife in the back. Sometimes it's a shadow in the mirror. The thing you thought loved you, watching as you fall. I went home and printed everything I'd found so far. Receipts, screenshots, appointment logs, access records, texts from Jenna. I put them in a manila folder and slid it under my bed. I wasn't ready to use it. Not yet. But I needed to know it existed, that there was a record, because women like my mother rewrite stories with alarming speed, and men like Mason charm their way into credibility with polished words and perfect credentials. But paper doesn't lie, and dates don't forget. I made a list of people I'd helped. Mom. Paid off one of her credit cards in 2021. Mason. Helped him set up his website, edited his About Me page. Jenna. Covered her rent twice when she was between jobs. I wasn't keeping score. Until now. Now I needed to know just how many knives I'd sharpened for people who later turned them on me. On Monday, I started the new job. Naomi's team was sharp. Fast-talking, detail-obsessed, and allergic to drama. I liked them immediately. I kept my history to myself. No gossip, no explanations. They didn't need to know I'd been replaced by my mother in a relationship I thought was real. They didn't need to know I'd been evacuated from my own life. All they needed to know was that I was efficient. And I was. Because when everything inside you collapses, the outside gets very quiet, very organized, very capable. 3 days in, I had lunch with Naomi. She raised her eyebrows. You seem calm. Am I? Calm or plotting, she said. Hard to tell. I smiled. She leaned in. You're not done with them, are you? I sipped my coffee. No, I said. I'm just getting started. That night, I got a text from Mason. I miss you. No apology, no acknowledgement, just that. As if we'd lost touch at a coffee shop, not imploded in front of a desk covered in lingerie. I didn't reply. And I just added the screenshot to the folder. Then I renamed the file, control_reclamation.pdf. Because revenge isn't about rage. It's about records. I didn't realize how quiet revenge could be. Movies train you to expect shouting, slamming doors, public confrontations with gasps in the background and music swelling in your ears. But in the real world, revenge is quiet, like a faucet dripping after midnight, like a phone vibrating face down on a table, unanswered, like Mason's name slowly disappearing from professional directories I used to check daily. My new office was across the city, technically in the same ecosystem, but outside his immediate orbit. Corporate gray walls, laminated security tags, conference rooms named after national parks. I liked it here. No one asked personal questions. And no one commented on my smile like it was currency. And better yet, the firm had contracts with Mason's clinic. Not directly, but through a compliance loop. I was looped into that loop on day 11. No one questioned it. They assumed I had clearance, because I did. I kept things surgical, searched through quarterly vendor performance reports, traced digital trails, email interactions, meeting attendance, signatures on invoices. It wasn't until week 3 that I found it. A timestamp mismatch, an invoice from Mason's clinic filed under a private session rate, billed as an institutional contract. I checked the client ID, LGRAY-07. That wasn't a company. That was a person. And someone had categorized her therapy as a professional development expense, is paid out by a mental health budget that was legally supposed to serve frontline employees. In plain terms, they committed fraud. I sat very still, not excited, not angry, just clear, finally. I screenshotted the invoice, the client ID, the attached calendar invite, the payment trail, slid it all into the folder. I called it Thread 01, Personal Use of Institutional Funds. I wasn't planning to leak it, yet. But this was leverage. And I don't burn things I haven't weighed. Jenna texted later that night. Jenna. She wants to do family therapy. I stared at the message for 5 minutes before responding. Me. With Mason? Jenna. Who else? Me. Tell her to go to hell. Jenna. Already did. She cried. Said I was tearing the family apart. Me. Classic. Jenna. I miss Dad. We didn't say anything after that. Because what was there to say? He died 10 years ago, but in that moment, we both knew he would have never let this happen. He would have seen her unraveling, and maybe he would have stopped it, or maybe he would have left too. I met with Naomi the next day, not as friends, as co-workers. She was looped into an audit regarding vendor ethics. Nothing major, routine review. Mason's clinic came up. I kept my face blank. Naomi flagged a duplicate charge in one of their statements, small but suspicious. I'll flag it upstream, she said. I nodded. That was all. No fireworks. Just another drop in a very patient faucet. A week later, Mason called. Not texted, called. I didn't answer, but I let it ring, just to hear it. Then he emailed. Subject, closure, body. Riley, I think we owe each other some kind of peace. I forwarded it to my personal account, marked it as part of the archive. Then I filed a request to revoke his vendor credentials quietly through an internal form, not as retaliation, but as standard compliance protocol. He'd breached category ethics. That was enough. Mom sent me a card. No envelope, just folded cardstock in my mailbox. The front said, "Forgiveness is strength." Inside, she wrote, "I hope one day you understand how heavy love can be, Mom." I tossed it into the shredder without unfolding it all the way, because love doesn't wear lingerie to therapy. Love doesn't evict daughters from their careers to make room for ego. Love doesn't weaponize intimacy for status. Whatever she felt, it wasn't love. It was competition. Here's the secret no one tells you. Mothers don't always want you to win. Sometimes they want to stay the prettiest woman in the room, even if it means making sure you're never allowed in it. By month 2, Mason was under review, still technically practicing, but the agency froze his vendor payments pending clarification. His tone shifted. He emailed again. Subject, please. Body. Riley, I don't know what's going on, but I know you. You wouldn't do this unless you felt hurt. Can we talk? No, we couldn't. Because this wasn't about feelings anymore. This was about facts. Facts I'd printed, logged, filed, and shared, one document at a time, with the right people. People who didn't care about my drama. They cared about liability, about exposure, about risk. Mason had become one. So had Linda Gray. And corporate America doesn't coddle risks. It cuts them loose. I started sleeping better. Not deeply, but cleanly. No dreams, no spirals, just space. My apartment began to feel like mine again. My plants perked up. I donated the jacket Mason once complimented, threw away the mug my mother gave me when I got the job, erased the playlist he made, not because I needed to forget, but because I refused to be sentimental about lies. Here's what I know now. You don't have to scream to reclaim power. Sometimes all you have to do is document the truth. Put it in the right folder. Send it to the right inbox. And wait. Pressure doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives in subtler ways, like a missed smile at a networking event, like a delayed response from someone who used to answer instantly. Like my mother showing up uninvited, claiming she just happened to be in the area, and trying to leave a bag of groceries at my door like she hadn't detonated my life 8 weeks ago. I didn't open the door. I watched her from the peephole as she stood there. Perfect hair, designer coat, no makeup but expensive lip balm. She stayed for 7 minutes, knocked twice, never called. Then she left. The bag contained blueberries, sourdough bread, and a lavender-scented candle. Nothing I asked for. Everything she thought would make me soften. At work, Naomi called me into a meeting. It wasn't formal, but I felt the shift in energy before she even said my name. She closed the door behind us. "Hey," she said. "I just want to give you a heads up." I nodded. She sat on the edge of the table. "Mason filed an inquiry." I blinked. What kind?" "He thinks someone at this agency is targeting him." I laughed once, quiet, bitter. Naomi raised her eyebrows. "He says it's affecting his income, reputationally." And compliance reviewed the claims. So far, nothing traceable. She paused. "But if I were you, I'd stop logging in after 8 p.m., just so no one can call it obsessive." Message received. I wasn't in trouble. Not yet. But the heat was rising, and Mason was sweating. Jenna texted again. "Jenna, Mom's freaking out, says you're trying to ruin her reputation." Me, "I haven't said a word." Jenna, "She thinks you're working with Dad's lawyer." Me, "Why would I do that?" Jenna, "Because she's trying to refinance the house. Her name's not on the deed." There it was. The pressure wasn't just corporate, it was personal. Mom was trying to solidify her own power, and she needed silence from both of us to do it. But silence was no longer free. That night, I received a private message on LinkedIn from a woman named Elise, a junior associate at a firm Mason used to consult for. Elise: "Hi Riley, this might be weird, but I saw your name in some internal emails. I think we have something in common." I replied, "We met for coffee 2 days later. She told me everything. Mason had dated her briefly, very briefly. 3 months, professional overlap, mentorship." Sound familiar? She'd left quietly after their breakup. He'd told HR she couldn't handle feedback. She never fought it. She just vanished, moved cities, started over. But she'd been watching, and she saw the vendor report go public. She saw the suspension. And she knew I had something to do with it. She didn't want revenge. She wanted clarity. So I gave it to her. We shared a timeline, compared notes. His patterns were consistent. Young woman slightly under his professional rank, emotional vulnerability disguised as support, gaslighting when they asked questions, quiet character erosion when they resisted him. He didn't break rules. He bent context. Until now. Now, the context was fire. At home, I added a new section to the file. Thread 02, Pattern of Exploitation. I included Elise's notes, with her permission, her screenshots, her timeline. I time-stamped everything. It wasn't just about Mom anymore. It was about Mason, about his ability to shape narratives, control optics, and erase women who didn't behave the way he needed them to. And I was done being erased. And the next morning, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was thin, controlled. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this isn't the way to fix it. You're tearing this family apart." Family. That word again. As if she hadn't gutted it herself. As if I was the arsonist in a house she'd set on fire months ago. I didn't call back. I saved the message. Filed it under Thread 03, Emotional Manipulation. Let the record show. I had receipts. Naomi called me into her office again on Friday. She looked tired, serious. "Mason's been removed from our vendor list," she said. "Officially." I nodded. "I don't know what happened," she added, "and I don't want to know." Fair enough. "But someone upstairs knows your name now," she said carefully. I figured. So, what's your end game? I looked at her. Nah, I'm not trying to go viral, I said. I just want them to stop. Stop pretending, stop spinning, stop winning by default. She nodded. Then she leaned back in her chair. For what it's worth, she said, you've handled this cleaner than most people ever could. Here's what no one tells you about taking back power. It's boring. It's emails, PDF files, quiet meetings, denied contracts, frozen accounts, it's long walks, early nights, unsent messages. It's deciding not to speak, not because you're afraid, but because you're already ahead. Because the worst thing you can do to people who thrive on control is move on without them. That weekend, I got dinner with Jenna. We didn't talk about Mom. We ordered pizza, laughed about high school. He talked about TV shows and bad tattoos and the man who once proposed to her at a Renaissance fair. Then she said something I didn't expect. You know, she said, swirling her straw, Mom's afraid of you now. I raised an eyebrow. She said it yesterday. She's afraid of what you'll do. I sat back. She should be, I said softly, because I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a witness. Some people only respond to fear. My mother was one of them. And fear didn't always come with sirens. Sometimes it arrived in the form of silence, heavy, deliberate, strategic. I hadn't spoken to her in over a month. She'd tried texting twice that week, both times cloaked in emotional blackmail dressed up as concern. You've always been too proud. That's not strength, Riley. I still pray for you every day. Classic moves. Reframe the fallout as my tantrum. Send her own grace. But I didn't reply, because the next move wasn't hers, it was mine. By Tuesday, I had it. The missing thread. Not fraud, not just ethics violations, not just personal betrayal, conflict of interest, direct, provable, legal. I found it buried in an old cross-referral agreement. Mason had been referring private clients, including my mother, to a wellness center he'd failed to disclose he co-owned. He charged premium rates, pocketed referral fees, and billed the clinic as if the sessions had occurred in-house. It was textbook. It was enough. I printed the documents, not just emails, contracts, signed, stamped, archived, and I handed it off. Not to HR, to legal. Through the correct channel, with the correct tone. Professional, polite, substantiated, no emotion. Just the facts. That same week, the State Board of Psychological Examiners opened a quiet inquiry. No splashy headlines, no panic, just paperwork. And that's what undid him. Not scandal. Procedure. 3 days later, Mom showed up again, unannounced. This time at work. I saw her through the glass walls, talking to the front desk, hair perfectly blown out, trench coat draped over her arm like she'd come from court or church, take your pick. The receptionist buzzed my line. There's a woman here for you. Says she's your mother? I didn't flinch. Tell her I'm not available. She says it's urgent. It's not, I said, and hung up. She stood in the lobby for 5 full minutes, then left. I watched the security footage later. She kept fixing her hair. That was her tell, not guilt. And just control slipping through her fingers. That night, Jenna called. She's spiraling, she said. Says she might go away for a while. Spa retreat or something. She's hiding, I said. She keeps asking me if I know anything. Do you? Jenna hesitated. I know enough. I paused. Do you want to know more? She didn't answer right away, but the silence was consent. I sent her the public ethics filing. Sanitized. No commentary. Let her read it herself. She called me back an hour later. I'm sorry, she said. I'm not, I replied. The following Monday, I received an email from a professional board liaison. Brief, formal, thanking me for my diligence. No promises, no outcomes, just acknowledgement. But that was enough. Because in systems like this, acknowledgement is a crack, and cracks spread. And Naomi caught me in the hallway that afternoon. Was that your mom? She asked casually. In the lobby? I nodded. Yeah, she looked rehearsed. She always does. Naomi paused. You okay? I nodded. I think I finally am. I kept my head down that week, delivered reports, signed off on audits, took notes during a vendor renewal meeting without once looking at the company names attached. But then, Thursday afternoon, mid-meeting, my phone buzzed. Private number. I silenced it. Then came the email. From Linda Gray. Subject, do you feel better now? Body. You've always had a flair for drama. I hope destroying people makes you feel powerful, because it doesn't make you right. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to a folder labeled Thread 04, Retaliation Attempts, because that's all it was now. Evidence. Her words weren't wounds anymore. They were documentation. Mason's office removed his photo from the website within 48 hours of the board inquiry becoming public. He issued a vague leave of absence statement on LinkedIn. No comments allowed. But Elise messaged me again. Elise, saw the update. Quiet downfall. My favorite kind. Me. Same. She added a winking emoji, then a sentence I didn't expect. Elise. I told 3 people about you. They're watching now too. It struck me then. I wasn't the only one. He hadn't just played me. He'd played a pattern. But this time, the pattern pushed back. That weekend, Jenna came over. We sat on my balcony with matching glasses of rosé and zero need to fill the silence. She looked tired, but lighter. She told Aunt Carol you hacked her emails. I laughed. She'd have to know her own passwords for that to be possible. She's also convinced you recorded her. I didn't, I said, but maybe I should have. Jenna swirled her glass. She thinks people owe her loyalty just because she's loud. Loyalty doesn't mean silence, I said, especially when someone uses yours against you. Jenna didn't answer, but she nodded, slowly. Here's what no one tells you about exposure. It doesn't always feel victorious. Sometimes it's just still. A slow breath, a clean inbox, a woman standing at her balcony sipping wine, knowing she finally did something not to get applause, but to end the noise. I checked Mason's professional profile one last time that night. Inactive. Frozen. I clicked away without bookmarking it. He didn't deserve a place in my history. Not anymore. Yeah, then I opened a blank document, typed 2 words. She knew. Because that's what still haunted me. My mother knew he was mine, and she didn't care. Or maybe she did care, and that's why she did it. Because some women don't want to ruin you by accident. They want to replace you. Control doesn't collapse all at once. It frays, fiber by fiber. At first, they just talk less. Then they stop showing up. Then someone else slides into their role, quieter, more competent, less volatile. And by the time they realize they've been replaced, no one's interested in hearing their side. That's what started happening to Mason. His name disappeared from CC lines. His LinkedIn followers stopped liking his posts. His consultation contracts were quietly absorbed by other practitioners. One of them was a woman. I smiled when I saw that. Poetic justice doesn't have to be loud to feel good. Meanwhile, my mother started spinning. I didn't need to hear it directly. Jenna kept me updated. She's trying to launch a podcast, she texted. Something about second act femininity. I didn't respond. She's calling it Power in the Pivot. That got a laugh out of me. Of course she was. Linda Gray never let a scandal go to waste, even if she had to invent the scandal herself. By the end of April, the clinic where Mason practiced issued a brief statement. We are no longer affiliated with Dr. Mason Teller. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. No mention of review, no mention of conflict, just a sterile exit. But sterile is deadly in our world. It means no one's protecting you anymore. And that's how the silence began to surround him. I kept the folder. I didn't add anything new, didn't send it anywhere, I didn't have to. The damage was already catalyzed. Because the most effective exposure isn't about press releases. It's about consequence without spectacle. But then something unexpected happened. Naomi called me into her office. She shut the door, didn't sit down. There's chatter, she said. What kind? Your mom's trying to pitch a memoir. I blinked. You're kidding. She's been contacting publishers, small ones, positioning herself as a survivor. I leaned back. Naomi crossed her arms. She's calling it a story of rediscovery. Apparently, you're the villain. I almost laughed. Almost. But something about it sank lower than laughter. She's rewriting it already, I said quietly. Naomi nodded. You want me to make a call? I shook my head. Let her publish it, I said. Let her name names. Naomi raised a brow. Because I've got dates. I've got documents. I smiled. She'll sell lies. I'll sell receipts. I started working on my own draft that night, not for publishing, not yet. Just for record, not rage, not revenge, truth. Because the truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to exist. To be somewhere safe when the stories start spinning. Jenna came over a few nights later. She looked tired, carried 2 bags of takeout and a gallon of sparkling water. I'm cutting her off, she said before I even asked. I raised an eyebrow. She drained my emergency fund, told me she was going through something spiritual and needed to fly to Sedona. She went? She booked the ticket. She used my login points. I sat down. Jenna stood by the window for a long time, then, did you ever feel like she wanted your life? All the time, I said, like she needed to be more than your mom. She didn't want to be me, I said slowly. She wanted to be the main character in my story. Jenna nodded, even if it meant ruining you to get there. Especially then. We ate dinner in silence after that, but something in the air had shifted. It wasn't heaviness anymore. It was resolve. Mason emailed me one last time. Subject, you win. Body, congratulations, you got what you wanted. I didn't open it, just archived it. Victory wasn't the feeling, it was the absence of reaction. He was trying to pull me back into the narrative, but I wasn't a character anymore. I was the editor. 2 days later, my mother's podcast launched. It didn't chart, 10 views, 1 comment. The comment said, "This feels like projection in real time. I didn't write it, but I wish I had. Here's what exposure looks like in real life. Not a court case, not a headline, just silence where their power used to be. Doors they can't open anymore. Phone calls they make that go unanswered. Respect that doesn't walk into the room with them anymore. It's boring, in the best possible way, because what they built was fragile. And once it cracked, it didn't break dramatically. It just stopped mattering." I bought myself new bedding, soft white linen, no memories embedded in the fabric. I cleaned out my digital life. New passwords, deleted photos, archived the past. Not because I was hiding, but because I no longer needed the evidence to hold me together. The damage had been contained, and the chaos belonged to them now. Here's the cruelest part about betrayers. They never believe you'll walk away. Not really. They think the pull of the relationship, the guilt, the shared blood, the nostalgia will keep you orbiting them forever. But I didn't orbit anymore. I eclipsed, and they didn't see it coming. She showed up at my door again. No groceries this time. No coat. No smile. Just stood there in a fitted blazer, phone in one hand, trembling just enough that I knew it wasn't for performance this time. I didn't open the door, but I didn't walk away either. I stood behind the glass, unblinking. We stared at each other for almost a full minute. Then she raised her hand and knocked, just once. Please, she said, just a few minutes. I opened the door 2 inches, not out of compassion, out of curiosity. I wanted to see what she looked like when she was losing. She looked polished, but dimmed, like a dimmer switch turned down just enough to register as vulnerable. "I want to fix this," she said. I said nothing. She pulled out a folded piece of paper from her bag. "I've drafted an apology. For Jenna. For you." She extended it. I didn't take it. "I don't want your edits," I said. "I want your absence." Her face barely flinched, but her breath hitched. "You're my daughter." "No," I said quietly. "I'm your reflection, and you broke the mirror." She stepped back. Her voice cracked. "Finally. I lost everything, Riley." "No," I said. You just lost your audience." She left without pushing further. I watched from the window as she stood by her car for a few seconds before getting in. She didn't slam the door. She didn't peel out. She just drove away. Silently. Finally. That night, Jenna called. "She's asking to stay with me," she said. I sat down. "And?" I told her I'd rather live in my car. I exhaled. "She's not used to hearing no," I said. "She will be," Jenna replied, and that was the moment I knew. We'd crossed over. From being manipulated by her guilt to managing our own peace. The next morning, I received a FedEx envelope, return address blacked out. Inside, a necklace. Gold, thin chain, the one she used to wear when I was a kid. And a note. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you remember I loved you in my own way." I put the necklace in a drawer, not out of sentiment, but out of restraint, because burning it would have meant she still mattered, and she didn't. Not anymore. At work, Naomi stopped me in the hallway. "She called here," she said flatly. I blinked. "What?" "Left a message with reception. Said she was concerned about your well-being. Asked for your supervisor's name." My jaw tensed. "I shut it down," Naomi added. "I also logged it." Of course she did. She was always 5 moves ahead. "Thank you," I said. "She's desperate," Naomi replied, "but desperate people get sloppy." Desperation turned to paranoia. I got a letter from her lawyer the following week, not a lawsuit, a warning, claiming defamation, claiming intentional interference. The letter was hollow, no teeth, no claim number, just intimidation dressed up in legalese. And I sent it to a friend who worked at a firm in Century City. She read it, then laughed. "This is what people send when they don't want to be sued. They want to scare you into silence." "Is it working?" she asked. "No," I said. "It's working against her." Because here's what the letter told me. She wasn't trying to rebuild. She was trying to erase her consequences. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. Because erasure is what kept me quiet when the therapist I trusted turned on me. It's what kept Jenna apologizing for someone who drained her account and then blamed her for not budgeting better. It's what kept our family fractured. The silence, not the pain. Not this time. Not anymore. I wrote her back. 1 paragraph. No emotion. Any further contact of this nature will be handled through official legal channels. Do not contact me again. I didn't send it directly. I had my friend send it through her firm's letterhead. She wouldn't dare respond, because the moment I stepped into that world, she'd lose the game. She thrived in mess, but I was surgical now, and she knew it. Jenna and I had dinner again on Sunday. She looked tired but peaceful. "She called Aunt Carol again," she said. "Tried to say you were manipulating me." I smiled into my glass. Classic. "She says you're trying to turn me against her." "She turned you against her." Jenna nodded slowly. "Isn't it wild?" she asked. "How long we made excuses for her? Because we were afraid of what we'd see if we stopped." Jenna looked up. "And what do you see now?" I paused. A woman who built her identity on being worshipped, and when we stopped clapping, as she called it, betrayal. I cleaned out the folder that night, all the files, all the threads, moved them to a single encrypted drive, labeled it Gray_matter, not for revenge, not for protection, just for memory. Because one day I might need to remind myself, you didn't imagine this. It happened, and you survived it without becoming her. Here's what no one tells you about emotional abuse. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in compliments, in gifts, in false concern. It tells you you're ungrateful when you pull away, tells you you're cold when you stop giving. But the truth? Sometimes boundaries are the only thing louder than love. There wasn't a final blow, no courtroom face-off, no TV segment, no screaming voicemail confession. It ended in silence, the kind that isn't empty but earned. Yet the kind you walk toward barefoot, knowing there's nothing left to prove. In May, Mason's license was formally suspended, not revoked, not forever, just paused. Pending review. Pending ethical recalibration, as the board phrased it. His name was removed from the clinic's website entirely. Not archived, deleted, no history, no mention, like he was never there. I didn't celebrate. I just made tea, folded laundry, lit a candle that smelled like clean linen and endings. I ran into one of his former interns at a networking mixer 2 weeks later. She recognized me, pulled me aside, said softly, "You helped more people than you know," then walked away. No handshake, no drama, just truth, passed gently, like a receipt folded into a stranger's hand. Mom disappeared from social media, deleted her podcast. It took down her pivot coaching page, stopped posting selfies, stopped tagging restaurants, stopped trying to be seen. Jenna said she was somewhere upstate. I never asked where, because for once, her location didn't matter. She wasn't in my life anymore, and I was no longer rotating around hers. I changed jobs in June. A better offer, more autonomy, new building, no glass walls, no echo of betrayal in the corners. On my first day, I clipped a new badge to my lanyard, white background, gold trim. No one commented on my photo, and for once, I didn't shrink when I saw it printed. One night, Jenna and I went to the beach. We didn't talk much, just watched the waves crash and recede. She handed me a rock, smooth, flat, cold. "You keep this," she said. For the next time someone tries to bury you in guilt." I laughed. "You want me to throw it at them?" "No," she said. "Just hold it. Remind yourself you're heavier than they think." I started seeing a new therapist, one who didn't know Mason, who didn't know Linda, who didn't ask me to forgive before I was ready. She said something in our second session I wrote on a Post-it. Closure isn't about understanding them. It's about understanding why you don't need to. I read that every morning for a month, until I didn't need to anymore. Sometimes I walk past the building where it happened. The office, the iced coffee, the badge on the floor, the voice that didn't belong. I don't flinch anymore, because that building didn't destroy me. It exposed me, and from that exposure, I rebuilt myself, smarter, sharper, less willing to explain my boundaries, more willing to burn bridges that lead to nowhere. I got a letter in July, typed, no return address. From her, just 4 sentences. "I hope you're happy. I hope you feel powerful. You lost a mother. I lost a daughter." I burned it. No drama, just fire. Because if she ever truly had me, she would have protected me. And if she ever truly loved me, she wouldn't have tried to become me. I didn't lose a mother. I let go of a manipulator, and I gained myself. Here's what final control looks like. It's not dominance. It's independence. It's walking into your own life, uninvited but fully present. It's refusing to become the version of yourself they were most comfortable with. It's walking out of a story written by someone else and picking up the pen, not to rewrite the past, but to author everything that comes next. So here's what really happened. My boyfriend slept with my mother. She betrayed me. He discarded me. They both tried to rewrite the story before I could speak. And I documented. I distanced. I destroyed, quietly. And then I chose peace. Not because I forgave them, but because I finally understood. They never belonged in my future, only in my footnotes. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.